suppose it was the delight of going to Cork Show and the train from just up the road here, and sitting in the carriage, and that time we'd be used to the Dalpine car or possibly walking most of the time. So this was a big relief.
Yeah.
And going to football matches in Cork and so on, like, and we'd that was a big improvement anyway in our transport system. Section of the line here with a kind of a I'd say that it would be kind of after the famine, people hadn't recovered here at all from the hunger, like, and it was kind of relief work for the local people.
Yeah.
And the line from Skibbereen to Baltimore, it started just up the road here, up at Jay's Gullies.
Yeah.
It started halfway down the track, and they went each way to the east and the west. Yeah. Whoever they worked out their levels, I don't know. I thought they started one end, two ends that come to meet in the centre.
Probably safer.
Something like the tunnel, the channel tunnel. They started in the middle, and they worked out towards the end.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, they worked out earlier. I knew some people that worked on the line, the building of it. I served drink to them.
Yeah.
Young. And there was one story a fellow used to tell me there that worked on it. His name was Jack Hagerty. Did you know Timothy?
Yeah.
Timothy's uncle.
Timothy's uncle.
He worked on the building of the line about, I'd say, 1890. And that was a very cold winter, a bitter cold winter, extremely cold. And they were putting holes in the rock, making holes for the gelignite, put in the sticks of gelignite. And the system was that one man held the punch or the cold chisel, and every time the chisel was hit, he turned it half a turn just to keep it free from jamming. And two people were striking. One man hit first, the other was taking a rest, then he put his sledge down, and the other man would hit them. So that was the system all day long. But anyway, it got so cold that the chisel froze inside the hole. So the railway company anyway decided to call it off. And the snow was falling very heavy as well. So these people then proceeded homewards anyway, which would be, one man would have been from Dribble League, which is a long way up, and the other man was just living up here, where Timothy lived, about a mile up the road here. He'd have about 5 miles to travel. And they proceeded home anyway. And they got a big oilskin sheet from somebody anyway that they put in front of them. There was 3 of them there. And they were coming along the road, and then the snow got so high they couldn't tell the difference between the ditches and the fields and the road, because the whole thing was dead level. Yeah. So they were falling over the ditch for quite a while. They were falling into fields and all this kind of thing. Yeah. There was another story there about the workers. The workers' wives would come with the food, and they'd come at different times. Some would come at 12:30, some would come at 1, some would come at 1:30, 2 o'clock. So the railway company objected to this system anyway, and they decided it should be just from 1 to 2. That was it. So the workers got quite annoyed at this anyway, the system anyway. They were having none of it. So they decided to retaliate anyway and put in their own proposal. So they suggested that they would go along with the 1 to 2, okay, but the minute it struck 1, they'd stop that second.
Yeah.
And I said, if the pickaxe was up over their head, ready to draw down, they'd leave it there. Just leave it up in the air. I was on the last train coming back in here from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I think it was Good Friday, 61 April something.
Yeah.
Mid-April.
16.
14th of April or something. I'm not certain about the date.
Yeah.
But of course it was packed. It was packed that day.
Yeah.
And then of course the bus took over from there, which was far more convenient.
Right.
You know, you could be dropped off at your door. Like,
Okay.
sure, the train wasn't a great for people going shopping, you know, this kind of thing. It was no advantage, because if you got off the train here and you were living inside the Baltimore Road, you'd have to walk about 4 miles. So it was hardly worth your while bother at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just up the road here there were Hennessy's, and they would be the same. Hennessy's now the transport people in
Right.
Ballineen, they'd be a branch of those people.
And they were Cree. No,
Cree.
they were Cree.
Cree, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were up here at Cree. Do you know where Donald Scully is living at all? Maybe you know.
I know Scully's, yeah.
No,
no.
Donald now, he built a bungalow there. It's very close to the old school.
Oh, right, I know.
The railway line ran.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the gates is still standing there. But these were Hennessy's, and they came from Ballineen,
Right.
where the transport people operate from. And their father, I think, was the First World War or something. But when he came home, then he got this little job at the house. I'd say you got little or no money, only just, you got a free house.
Oh.
And you just made sure the gates were open.
The train, yeah.
The train was passing in.
Right.
The other ones, the other ones were very much associated with the line. They were, I'd say, from here to Drummy, there was a gentleman somewhere involved
Yeah.
in putting down the line and maybe changing, doing maintenance work,
Right.
or on the stations. But this station up here, I got the first prize several times, I'd say, in Ireland, for the way it was laid out and the way it was maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It was absolutely beautiful. It was done very well, and they
Yeah.
put hours and hours. The gentlemen, people are very neat people, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And they take a pride.
they take a
People
pride in-
pride.
They'd be actually first cousin of Donald and on the boatyard now, over here.
Were they?
Yeah.
Right.
But these people are dead quite a while. It was meant to be over here because the post office was over here, the pier was there, the pub was here. And there were lots of things happening in this area. But then the landlord decided it should be up the road here, half a mile in front of his own gate. And he also moved the post office up there for convenience. There were the times. The steam train would be coming by. There was a big pull up here. There was a kind of a hill here,
Yeah.
and she'd be pulling up the hill.
Yeah.
There'd be loads of sparks coming up the chimney.
From the chimney or the
Not
wheel?
from the train.
Yeah.
And the big load was on. She would labouring,
Yeah.
and there'd be sparks coming up the front of
Right.
it. And I remember one time we were going to Baltimore to regatta.
Yeah.
To the fierce warm day, and she was shooting up sparks into the sky anyway, and we were ready to board the train, and then somebody shouted that the whole bank of the line was on fire, and there were several fuel tanks people had for tractors and that kind of thing located close to that, and the fire was closing in them. And we had to go away with sticks anyway, beating the fire. And we never got to Baltimore. Which we enjoyed it. We thought it was good fun. We thought it was good fun. Yeah.
Brilliant.
There was an awful lot of cutting to be done to make this line from Skibbereen to Baltimore. Like you just leave Skibbereen there now, like, and come out the cutting as we call it there, like.
Yeah.
You're supposed to
That
the rock there was probably 100 or maybe 150 feet high,
Yeah.
and to chisel through that like. And then West Ra there, you had the bridges there that crossed deep gorges and all this kind of thing, and they cut down hills. It must have cost a fortune to build it.
Yeah.
And of course the work was impeccable altogether. The remaining bridges, like, they're absolutely perfect. There's the crack or anything in them. They used to be moored halfway across the harbour, Baltimore. Loads of fish, loads of employment, changed the whole scene around Baltimore. And then I suppose, when I suppose the railway line was built in, of course, to transport the fish, you see, to Billingsgate and those places. And that had been used then to feed the armies. And I don't know what war would be on that time. It should have been Napoleon wars were earlier on, like it. But I just don't know.
But you had the idea for keeping some of the track going into Baltimore as a road.
Oh yeah, sure. It would have been if you had a one-way system like out of Baltimore. Sure, the road was there. It was dead level, like the line was there,
Yeah.
I suppose to be very easy to convert it into a single, one-way road anyway. Like. Sure, a narrow road would do you going one way. And it had been well compact and everything with the train going over it for 70 years. So it would have been I suppose that would have worked very well, all right, and it would have brought you way over here then to Derry as far as the forge here, like, and to be a great relief for the other road going in. You had a bus then instead of the train, and then as well you had these vans doing deliveries. So things were changing, all right, and you see they deliver something to your door, like close to your door anyway.
Right.
Where the train could not leave it off up here. You could be living 5 miles away. Much of an advantage. I was fishing in 1960 in Baltimore, and we put backward into the train. I believe they're from Billingsgate in London.
Right. Yeah.
And all that was on him was a bit of salt. And they left Baltimore. Maybe we'd have them on the train, or the train would be loaded up maybe at about, say, 11 o'clock in the day, and she'd take off then, and she'd be in Billingsgate in the morning. This train would go to North Wall, I think, and go across to Liverpool or some place like that, and travel all night then up through England and have the fish for sale.
Yeah.
They were still fresh, like,
Still fresh.
they were only about, what do I say, 15 or 16 hours old.
Right.
A
Okay.
little bit of salt.
Right.
So they would be fresh enough for the market.
Right.
There was a fairly big pull up out of Baltimore, like coming way up there now for the school there, like you would have there'd be a good steep pull there. That was the test. Anyway, after she must be failing there and slowing down, and she wouldn't make it. She did, obviously. But I know on the tram over here on the other side, this tram was a narrow gauge affair, and that one when they run on fuel, like, you'd have to go out and cut timber, get turf and this kind of thing, and stoke her up again and get her going. That's the discovery. Very good. But if you in along the road there, like, there were several gatehouses,
Yeah.
But I doubt there's anybody left. Those families died off completely.
Yeah.
They had no descendants, like, and they're not.
There was a Solus Cross then, was it?
Well, that's correct, yeah. There was a whole lot of them there now. There'd have maybe about 6 gatehouses
Yeah.
on the way to Skibbereen, I'd say.
Right.
But all those people, they were like bachelors, and they died off, and there was nobody to carry the story.
Carry the story. Yeah.
A bridge up here, and used to be up on top of the bridge, and the train would be passing in the evenings, and we'd have a whole heap of sods and small stones. We used to be all trying to get it down the funnel. The train was passing. Never succeeded. Because she was puffing stuff up. And the minute she'd come out at the other side of the bridge, like we'd be there waiting, which we only got with a shot of smoke into your face. We still keep trying anyway. Never succeeded. Yeah. And of course, coming home from school, then we'd come down along the line. That was coming from the school down to here, and that's how we normally come home.
All right. You'd walk the line or
walk the line, and down along the Sound, and come down along the wall of the bridge there, down here. Yeah.
That would be a shortcut, would it?
Oh, it would be very direct anyway. And level and all this kind of thing. When we were young now, we'd be at school, and when we'd be left out at lunchtime. I think we was getting about half an hour. And they had a big pot of tea made down on the railway line. They'd have a whole lot of sticks and spannock and everything we gathered, and black kettle hanging with some kind of crook. And they'd have to brew up about half a gallon of tea, or maybe a gallon. And all of that for your cup. That we thought was magic.
The railway people would.
The workers.
The workers.
That would be maintaining the railway.
Okay.
And repairing the sleepers and all this kind. They were all wood that time. You see, the sleepers were. They're probably concrete now, I think. And you'd get an old jug of tea from them. And this was worth a year's tea to them.
But the engineer of the train seemed to have status, did he?
He did, yeah. He was, I suppose he'd be called the fireman, I'd say.
Right.
He'd be coming along in the morning at about 6 o'clock, like.
Right.
It would take him about 3 hours, like, to get up steam.
Right.
And he'd start the little fire and rake out the grate and all this kind of thing, and I suppose load her up with coal. And get the heat going anyway, and get her up to such a temperature that she'd do her business for the day, do her work. And you'd see him on Skibbereen a lot. They'd be shunting around carriages there, like Mr. Love watching that, because you know where Hobson's choices is about a mile over the road. When they were making the railway line, they used to draw the stone and the rock and the fill and all this lot from the highest point they dig it out there, like, and they had they'd have a temporary railway made to the edge of the lowest point. And they'd run a carriage on the track. They'd probably push it, I suppose, and when it came to the very end of the track, then you had two fellows with two big sticks, and they'd jam it into the spokes. That was the brake. And with a sudden jolt, the carriage would trip over, well, maybe the top portion, and she'd spill out the load. And away you went again for another load. But this day, anyway, this fellow was tripping it, and so you could see his leg go in. And it cut the leg off him anyway, just up the road here. And, the people that were somewhere close by told me that there was a lot of neglect there. He was sitting in the bank that evening for a couple of hours with only one leg. And they took him to hospital eventually, but he died, loss of blood. So I suppose there were harsher times in the worker, like, he didn't have much rights, like, no sympathy for him. But anyway, the poor fellow, he died anyway. But there was the system of trying and tipping the rock or to fill the hollows. There would be a good few locals, and they were coming as far as Cara, and Admiral from Jubilee, and the people from Cara, that's a long ways away now, that could be, I suppose, 7 or 8 or 9 miles, maybe 10 miles. And it was 12-hour shifts they were working. So they'd have to be there in the morning at 7 o'clock, 7 to 7, and then hump off to Cara, get a few hours sleep, start off in the morning again at 2 hour jaunt, 3 hours I suppose, down here, so their time in bed and rest was daylight set. And of course then when the train was running, I don't know that the system always or not, but they'd have a man walk the line, one of the workers would walk the line every morning before the first train would run, to make sure everything was 100%, in case there'd be a rail after maybe dislodging or something or whatever. But anyway, that was one of the rules. They'd have to have a worker walking the line in the morning. So the man over here now, Michael O'Sullivan's uncle, I'd say he used to walk from the gatehouse over here down to Baltimore. It's usually the wives would maintain the gates, and the husband would be out working. So that was their function. And I don't know how they managed at the time, because there was little or no clocks. But they had a telephone system, all right. You did have that. So you could telephone the station, or any of the stations, or the other gatehouses. So at least you had that anyway. I suppose the idea of that was that if the train was broke down, or if you're ahead of time or something, that they would warn you. You know. Then you'd have outings as well, like there on Sundays, and sometimes the gate keeper wouldn't be notified at all, and they'd I suppose to use the telephone then, I suppose to alert them, like.
Yeah.
There was a case over there, no Knockaville there. I knew the son of the woman that was killed, but she just got the phone call to say the train would be coming, but it was ahead of time. So she rushed out to open the gates anyway. And it came too fast, and she ran in the door of the house, in the front door, and she ran right through the house to the back wall, and in the splinter timber come right in after and killed her inside the back of the house. Inside
From the gate?
From the gate, yeah. The train bursted in bits, yeah, of course.
Oh my God.
And he'd rake out the cinders and load it up with coal for the day, and he would start a little fire and shovel in coal and get up the temperature then to working temperature, whatever temperature that would be. No, I don't know, sure the water had to be boiling anyway, didn't it? Turn into steam, so it must be no more than boiling a good bit. So he'd have to get this big tank of water up to boiling point, and then she was ready for action, and that would take maybe 2 or 3 hours, like, of harmless job. I think Carden inside in Skibbereen, behind the station, was a neighbour across the road there, Billy Jennings, and we were stoking the corn anyway, we were cutting and stoking, and just after lunch anyway, the rain came down, the day changed. So then we headed over for where the workers used to have their lunch. We canteen, but there was about 10 ton of coal inside in this building. We were sitting in a board at one side of it, and I remember the men there huge coal fire inside in the grate. Huge altogether, the raining man outside it was absolutely lovely. But and they were all playing cards with you. 3 or 4 tables of cards there. So obviously they weren't working in the rain at all. They must have got the time off. Wet time was time off, I'd say. But I'd say there was loads of people employed, like, because you had to do everything manually, hadn't you? You know? Yeah. Just the diesel engines came in, and then of course there was no fireman needed anymore. Staff was cut back, I suppose. Yeah, but I suppose all over the country, like particularly the west, like Clare and Galway and Donegal and Mayo and all those places, like, so there was nothing happening there at all. So it was a financial disaster, I'd say, in those places. And I suppose at that stage they really had to do something, like. And then of course, you know, the bus was so much handier. Then I suppose there was a lot of taxi cars at the time as well. There was about 4 in Baltimore, I'd say. So you wouldn't be left on the side of the road at all.
So people stopped using the train generally.
They did. You know, they did, yeah. You would be passing there with more often with no person inside it in the last 4 or 5 years. No one. So, you know, it wasn't to service anymore, like, really. Sure, like, just take ourselves now, if we're going for Skibbereen, we'd go up here to Cree, and that'd be about 3/4 of a mile up the road, walk back again here. Sure, if we walked out from Skibbereen, we'd be most of the way and save our 7 or 8 pence. That weekend, it'd be chock and block out, it would be full. And the last train leaving Baltimore then on a regatta evening, that was turned to be the end of the summer. And the last train went out.
August,
The summer was gone. Something with it was, I suppose it wasn't, but anyway. And you'd have a whole lot of old Charlies there from Skibbereen. They'd be drinking all day in Baltimore. And they'd be spitting at everything coming up and screeching at each other. Getting sick and all. That last train was some trip to be had. Trip of a lifetime. I'd rather be on the Titanic. So, I don't know, I heard stories like that it was meant to go on to the railway was meant to go on to the island, but I wouldn't believe it. To cross Baltimore Harbour would be an awful span, like, but I don't know, right? This was a story I heard anyway that it was designed to go to the islands, got in the Cape to all about the fish, like, you know, transporting fish. So maybe it was. We just had a family up here. I never remember calling anyone a station master up here. I'd say it would be more of a junior, a smaller station or something. Maybe you wouldn't have one. There was a brother and a sister there. They were kind of running that one up there. These O'Donovans, and they were the only people I'd have known now. In Skibbereen or in Baltimore, you would have a station master, of course. The guy in Baltimore, I don't remember his name now, right? I just can't think of it now, but he was the station master in Skibbereen, of course. And I suppose all the towns and villages, of course, would have a station master. They'd be punching a ticket there, or selling a ticket, you see, at the station. Right. That's the only place you could buy a ticket.
Okay.
So they'd have a machine in there for punching a hole in it and this kind of thing. Right. Whatever they'd. We saw it passing us when the train was full.
Okay.
That'd be just a regatta day or something, you know.
Yeah.
But they'd never, that would be just a one day. After that, it would never be half filled or anything. I suppose the excursions that all right, to the city was, it would half fill it all right, you know. And there used to be excursions down to Yahoo. We used to go down there, on and off there. And the first time I saw these big beaches,